Hi. I wanted to come on and run through a lot. This is all right. I'm back with hopefully a better Wi-Fi. Just give myself a cover photo. I always forget to do that. And then I have to choose between sometimes rather awkward two things that have come up. One, I wanted to say that, I'm getting a few messages along the lines of like, well, my doctor thought I had CFS and then I had this. And all diagnoses of this type are interpretation. I feel really fortunate that I am going through this experience right now, because believing that this thing is real is something that happened within the last decade, basically. What is important is I was having an experience, a terrible, awful lived experience. I didn't understand what it was, so I didn't know what to do about it. I read about PEM and listened to other people's experiences. I identified that my experience aligns with theirs. And now that I have words, CFS, PEM, ME, I can research and learn how to take care of myself. This is the only thing that matters. What does it matter if my diagnosis is right in this regard, when the treatment, when what is most important here is the identification of the push-crash cycle. If you are dealing with this or have dealt with this or live this way, you understand that when you don't know that you're in a push-crash cycle, it's a form of hell. You feel really bad. You are working every day very hard at trying not to feel bad, and you continue to feel very, very bad. So these are just words. This is my point about language a lot. They're just words. There's no medication. Like, it's different than ADHD, which qualified me for medication that I found really helpful. That diagnosis, the term itself really mattered and was very important. But if I have CFS, like I believe I do, then the only thing that changes is I step out of the push-crash cycle now that I've identified it. We don't need to get so worked up about whether I have CFS or not, or whether a legitimate medical authority has diagnosed it, because it's the push-crash cycle that matters. Okay, and number two, the thing that keeps coming up for us over and over again as we talk about moving back into the Chow house, which I understand from the outside seems like the most logical choice, and it seems ridiculous that we would consider moving to another place entirely. It just doesn't make sense to attempt to buy a different house in the Seattle area. There's just not stock, not availability. We're not going to find what we want and need there. And the issue that we keep coming back to around the Chow house is that it doesn't have structure. It doesn't have structure around organization and storage. This is so important. A big part of the stress for me, and a huge reason that I push myself too far, is that clutter is very triggering for me. Not caring about it just isn't an issue. It's related to my childhood trauma. And so I need to set myself up in a situation where I'm not being faced with that. CFS flares come not just from physically pushing yourself too far, but mentally too. How delightful. I need to set up a new and different kind of life for myself that is not so stressful in some really important ways. And management of household is a big part of that. The only solution I've come up with, like the capacity I have right now, especially right now after this road trip, I couldn't set up the house. I will send myself into a flare attempting to do so by myself. And so the only conclusion I can come to is hiring some sort of personal assistant who doesn't just clean my house and doesn't just take my kids to the park. That's the kind of help I've had before. This is an entirely new kind of help that I can't really grasp, like someone who will actually solve problems for me. I guess if you have used this and you can, I don't even get how you do that, because the kind of help that we've had has been so far from that kind of thing. We've had essentially babysitters, or just people who take your kids so that you can do other things. The problem is that I can't do all those other things. Not right now anyway. I mean, maybe I'm going to recover, but what I'm trying to get at is I couldn't get this house set up. And it's a fairly simple process. I understand that. I don't have the capacity. So when I think about moving into the Chow house, I think of having a lot of stuff to move through and get rid of. That's also the kind of work right now that as of this time, I don't have I'm feeding myself, friends. I'm sitting on a park bench at a coffee shop while my kid gets braces on and feeding myself, and that's about all I've got. These are massive projects. So when people write to me and say you should move back into the Chow house, it's what you know, that's going to be the thing that works and is easier. It's not what it feels like to me. So much stuff has to be, so many problems with that house have to be solved. And how do we live with no structure? Hi. And also, please don't write me to tell me I just need to take one step at a time and I'm overcomplicating things. When you do that, you communicate to me that you don't understand how low my capacity is. I am not overwhelmed because I am thinking that I have to do the whole project at one time. I'm overwhelmed because I don't understand how to do the project at all. You're telling me that you run a marathon by taking one step at a time, and I'm telling you that I can't even run a marathon. So this is my great stress. I tried to get in with my therapist, but she's very busy, so I'm using Instagram as my therapy. If you wanted to help me, this is what I need help with. How do I actually think about creating a life for us in that house with my capacity?